running a garage door business. I was living in a trailer. I hear something. Let me grab my gun.
That's part of the thing that just frustrates us.
I'm a Christian, I'm a constitutionalist, and I'm a capitalist.
What's happening, my friends? Today's video is sponsored by Aura. I use Aura to keep me safe online, and to demonstrate the power of it, I'm gonna have a little sting operation on my buddy Ben here. Check it out. Would you come take a look at something? Check this out. Here's your telephone number. I'm guessing.
That stinks. Everywhere I've lived,
You know what? You should use Aura.
I was wondering if we look up your name, if Aura
Let's give it a shot.
is able to block some of this. Just curiosity.
One search for someone who isn't even me.
Really?
Yeah, I don't show up. I'm a ghost, bro. I use Aura. In a recent data breach, 73 million AT&T customers had all their data stolen. Make sure you're able to protect your identity, protect yourself from hackers, protect yourself from people trying to gather information on you. Check out aura.com/WPS. You can get a 2-week free trial by following that link, and as much as 63% off of your membership. aura.com/WPS. Now on to the video. What's happening, my friends? Welcome back. Today we've got two guests in studio. Rod Reason, CEO of Daniel Defense. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, John.
And Marty Daniel, remind me what you do for Daniel Defense.
I am chairman of the board.
Okay, so you're a high up guy. Marty Daniel. It's like Daniel Defense. That's amazing.
It is, yes.
So founder of Daniel Defense. And Marty, you don't do interviews like this, do you?
Not much.
You just don't like us, or?
I just don't like it.
I get it.
This is not an interview. This is a conversation.
It's a conversation. And so we're going to be asking some questions. Some of them are fun. Some of them are challenging. And we're just going to see how it goes. Daniel Defense is my favorite rifle company. I've had a man crush on the rifle since the very first, maybe 10, 12 years ago. My first premium rifle was a Daniel Defense M4A1. It sits beside my bed in all of its brown glory, and it guards me and my family at night. And now we've got the WPS DD gun, and I love that even more. And that's hard because the sentimentality of it. There's that backstory. You guys ready to get going?
Let's do it.
All right, so, immediately off to the races here. It's the comment section, and the internet's spicy, Marty, so pulling no punches. You ready for the first question?
I'm ready.
All right, man, here you go. You were asked in court if you thought the ATF should be abolished, and you answered, not at this time. What's your position on the ATF's authority and the constitutionality to limit the people's access to firearms?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but
It was a big question.
yeah. But let me just clarify my thought process, because that's
Sure.
a moment in time. I'm sitting in a unusual place.
Right.
So the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, there's no ATF. Now what agency is going to regulate me? Right, because I've seen the ATF. We know them. We understand them. They shift left when there's a left president. They shift right when there's a right president.
Yeah.
They do a lot of things that they shouldn't do all the time. But would I rather have another agency? There are laws that are in place.
Right.
And as long as laws are there, there's going to be somebody regulating. Regulating those laws.
If I had to choose between ATF and FBI, which I think the FBI would take over, I feel itchy, like I need to burn my clothes after, but I think.
Don't say
Who
it,
has the
John.
power?
I don't know. But man, I don't like either one of those options.
Yeah.
I don't, I want all the gun
in fact,
laws.
the options could get worse, right?
If ATF is disbanded, the bureaucratic system is going to still suck it up, and we have no real lasting change. Where would you go from there then?
So the issue is the laws, right? The laws which are unconstitutional.
Amen.
Which, fortunately, our courts are moving us back toward.
Right.
Back toward the Constitution. Probably not fast enough for anybody, also not for me. But let me just say, I'm a Christian, I'm a constitutionalist, and I'm a capitalist, right? So constitutionalist means I would like to see this country run like the Constitution is written.
Right.
So it's not just the ATF. There's a whole bunch of things going on in our government that are unconstitutional, and we need to move back. Right. So the Second Amendment is an ultimatum. thou shalt not infringe.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like sounds like a commandment.
The founders came down from Mount Sinai.
Exactly.
Wait, am I crossing the synapses here?
Mixing things up. But unfortunately, that's already happened.
Yeah.
Right. So we have these laws where the Constitution has been infringed.
Right.
And we've got to get rid of the laws, and then we don't have to worry. Then there won't be an ATF because there will be an ATF. They'll be taxing alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah.
Because there's no prohibition in the Bill of Rights against taxing those things.
Yeah. So here's the thing of it's the internet. Everybody's an expert, but the expert. You get one little headline and you're ready to light torches and grab pitchforks. And there's folks that just hear one little soundbite, and without giving any benefit of the doubt, any context, people are ready to just divide and I hate Daniel Defense, or I hate whatever company or whatever person. And I'm like, man, where's the calm thinking, maturity of benefit of the doubt? We'd love to just be able to do that. Now, I knew some backstory, and I didn't like the injustice of people ragging on my favorite rifle company when I knew and you knew what was going on. And so thank you for clearing the air on that. That changes a lot. I think a lot of people owe you apologies because I recognize your company and your legacy is actually very constitutional and pro-America, and I think that's a big deal.
You're welcome. No apologies needed.
Well, anyway, I don't know. Rod, your thoughts. Second Amendment, you're the new chief in town, right?
Yes, sir.
Marty has fired himself, and you're on board now. By the way, how did that happen?
This is going to be a fun conversation.
Bring it on. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I've been starting companies my whole life. Just love the customer journey. And Marty and I had met as part of a CEO group and knew each other for about 6 years. Would see each other once a quarter. And I remember one time I went home and shared with my wife. I said, I've met the coolest guy I know. And
Wow.
she's like, well, that's pretty bold. I'm like, I met Marty Daniel.
You just can't turn it off, can you? You sly dog. Look at you. You just...
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is embarrassing.
All right,
I had to say that on air just because I wanted him to hear it. But it's in all transparency. I mean, it was to be. I was a gun guy, but was not in the industry.
Right.
And had the opportunity to bring in a lady to come in and run my company. Promoted her from COO to president, and then eventually CEO. And then I stepped onto the board and was there to help with some governance and things, but was really looking for the next thing to go do. And that was a lot of prayer. My wife and I started to pray about what do we want to go do? What's God have for us? How do I take the talents that He's given me and the experience and use them in a really missional way? And I'll let you insert maybe the backstory, and then I'll.
Yeah, well, so we knew each other from a CEO group. You might want to check out Great CEOs Are Lazy, which is written by the founder of this group. And it's basically like, well, go figure out where the kink in the hose is. Your job is just figure out where the kinks in the hose are and teach people to go do that.
Yeah.
And then then you don't have to work so hard. Obviously, I've worked very hard, and Rod works very hard. It's kind of a joke, but it's a great book. And we do use it. But we, as a part of this group, in our group, there were like 8 guys. We all stay in the group. Once you join, you stay in it. So we really get to know each other, and we meet once a quarter to talk about issues. Right? What is your issue for this quarter? Well, one quarter, Rod brought up. Well, I'm thinking about like what I want to do next. Right?
Yeah.
And then just so happened in the same day, mine was like, well, I'm thinking about retiring. Thinking about what I need to do next, and how does this business outlive me, which I think, and I want to see that happen rather than be dead when that happens, right? And I want it to be missionally driven, and I want to have a say in how things play out,
right?
And so the guys around the table started like, hey, I know a guy, right?
Yeah.
And
everybody knew, but you guys,
well, they knew
the CEO group.
Well, they knew we were both Christian, right?
Yeah.
And they knew I wanted somebody that could drive a Christian-run company, it's just like it was so obvious to them, but we really didn't catch it. It took like 4 different meetings at the end of the 4th quarterly meeting And they're like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Right. And Rod said, Marty, I think they're serious.
So, yeah.
You want to talk about this? And he's like, yeah, we should talk about it. And then it took about 6 months to get it worked out and figured out.
So you have retired, and now you're in a board position, so kind of helping from more of a backseat. Direction. But you're really running the company.
And a coach for Rod, and a little bit of second layer knowledge, like how can I help you? Let me.
Yeah.
Hopefully, most of that is coaching and shepherding, and not telling people what to do. I want to tell people what to do. All CEOs want to tell people what to do. Your job is to teach them to learn how to do it themselves.
There's a good lesson in the fact that y'all met each other over the course of years in a CEO networking group, which means y'all are all meeting together for the purposes of coaching and betterment. Of like, there's probably more wisdom and help in that room once a quarter than.
I was starving for it when I joined.
So there's a lesson in that as well. Good leaders are always pressing in to figure out, how can I network better? How can I learn? How can I lead better? Good leaders are always student of leadership.
What you take away from that is like, they liked my idea. I'm gonna go do that, right?
Yeah.
When you're like sitting there not really sure whether your idea is good or not.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, well, have you thought about this? And you're like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't think about that. Right. So it's just a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Captain, my captain, you're leading Daniel Defense now, and in what direction? What's kind of mission? What's Daniel Defense look like over the next few years?
I'll take you back to the discussion that Marty and I were having at the time, and it was aligning what I felt like some of the talents that God gives. I believe, Matthew talks about the parable of the 5 talents, and it's a challenge to all of us as human beings. Every person listening has talents that God's given, period. How you use them, though, is how we're going to be judged. And so I thought, and was praying about, how can I use this experience that God's given in a truly missional way? And that was the thing that Marty and I began to talk about was, what's the direction here? Where do we want to go? What happens when you're not here and I'm not here? Does Daniel Defense even exist? Does the mission matter? Do people just buy different guns? I mean, we've seen that throughout history, that companies and brands just go away. And so we began to talk about, what's the future here post us? What's 50 years from now look like? And we said, if we're going to do that, we need to start to look at not just other firearms companies, but look at other big brands that are missionally aligned. And so we picked out companies like Hobby Lobby, Chick-fil-A, who are, notoriously, use that word appropriately, people know them as standing for faith, first and foremost. So
I got to interrupt.
Yeah, no, please.
Because this actually happened. It's like when Rod showed up first week, I'm like, Rod, I'm going to tell you a story. Like 10 years ago, I was just listening to a conversation. Maybe I was part of it. I don't really remember, but it was 2 people talking, and one said something like, man, the great gun brands like Smith & Wesson and Ruger, SIG, Daniel Defense. And I'm like, what did he just say? Did I just hear what I thought I heard? Because I had no idea that Daniel Defense would be in the same sentence with these other amazing brands.
Yeah.
And it really struck me in that moment. I'll never forget that moment. And it was a really cool place to be, right? Really, pat myself on the back, kind of got there.
Yeah.
But looking forward, I told Rod that story. And I said, I want people in 5 years or 10 years, I want to hear somebody say those great Christian companies like Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A or Daniel Defense.
That's good.
I said, that's your task. That's the next step we need to get to.
And I know something of your backstory of kind of like where Daniel Defense originated from. I'd love to hear a little bit more of mission from Rod, and then let's wind the clock way back because I think people will be shocked at kind of origin story. Some people are out there trying to start out a company and they want to get it from just a simple idea from a garage to all of a sudden to be something. And so I think there's some great help as we have a lot of desirous entrepreneurs out there. But
I love
so you're primed. You're almost ready, but we got to cede the floor to the boss here.
Those are my people.
Yeah.
So, Rod,
Well, same. I mean, that's the entrepreneur journey here has been really, really awesome. That's something that Marty and I share in common. That's something that all of these other CEOs are sitting around the table, we're all entrepreneurs at heart.
Yeah.
And what makes a good entrepreneur is someone that doesn't just have a good invention, but they recognize the pain in the marketplace. They understand that customers may not know how to even articulate that pain. They have felt that pain, and they want to go figure out how to solve it. And so that's the fun commonality that we share. So our future really is about taking the brand that's been established in Daniel Defense, a great brand. And I didn't want to just be part of a business.
Right.
I want to be part of something that was going to move mountains.
When I first, I came down and we did our rifle collab, and I met all your guys and saw your facility, but I met you, and I didn't know you from Adam. And so you said, like, in the first 30 seconds, you're like, yeah, we're Christ's first company. I'm like, all right, this guy not playing around. I'm like, I think I could like this guy. And then we hung out just a few minutes, and I'm like, yeah, we can be buddies. I liked you immediately. And so I like how you roll. No, you're just saying it because I did. Yeah, that's
true.
No, don't. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's you meet we talked about this over in the past, but it's you meet people, and there's just sometimes there's this like connection, and maybe it's just because you have a commonality or whatever. But I just felt that. I mean, I've heard your story in the past too, but I think in this day and age, I think it's important that people stand up for what they believe.
Amen.
I believe truth is truth.
Right.
There's a book that gives us that truth, and there's plenty of principles laid out in that book that give us that we can just run generally on our business. It doesn't mean you have to put Bible verses up on the walls, and we're not. But there are a lot of just fantastic, tried and true principles you can run a business by.
I would like to do a couple of those.
You want to do a couple?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Marty, you're up, man. Tell us about the origin story of Daniel Defense.
So about 1998, I was at the golf, playing a little golf that day. Came home very frustrated, hanging out with a buddy of mine you might know. His name's Ashley Burnstead, Blue Force Gear.
Yeah.
And we were having a beer, and I was complaining about my golf game. He's like, Marty, if you help me clear the range that's behind my house, because it's kind of all grown up, and we start shooting as much as you play golf, you will never come home frustrated. And I have not played a game of golf since.
That's great.
And he and I started shooting as a hobby.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with handguns and ARs, which I'd never shot before. I'd had hunting guns all my life, but never trained for self-defense.
Amen.
That's what we were doing.
I think it's Clint Smith who said that a golf course is just a complete waste. It could have been a rifle range. And I'm like, man,
all of our golfers on
that'll preach. That'll
waste of
preach. You
life.
traded up, brother.
Golf's
You
a waste
traded
of
up. All right. So you cleared land and.
Yeah, we started shooting, and I literally had, was shooting a handgun and an early Colt with a big pin front hole, carry handle top. This is 1998, so this was.
I'm still judging you.
Taking us back. It's taking us back a while, and I wanted to mount something on top of the gun, and I wanted a flat top upper, and I wanted to have the right size pinhole, right? So I didn't want to try to put two different size pinholes together for the front pivot pin.
Right.
So I called around, and I got a lot of no's. I finally found a guy that said, and what I was doing was like building 4 uppers for my rifle. Right? I wanted a lightweight one. I wanted a 9mm one, which we're looking forward to, and I wanted long range, and then just the standard by my bed gun, right?
Yeah.
So I finally I found a guy who said, I can't build four uppers for you. I could build 100.
Yeah.
And I'll take them.
That's quite a
And I said, and then
investment. Yeah.
Then I set up Daniel Defense website, and Ashley was helped some with that. And Ashley and I ran that business for the first couple of years. And I think it was about 5 years later that he was like, "This is working for you, Marty. I'm about to go do this myself." which is the start of his business.
Wow. How about that? So
This is what I want to do.
your main customers are like just neighbors and friends and people in like organic
this was
network?
internet.
Or?
No, this was
Okay,
internet.
internet, all right.
It was website.
Internet 1.0.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Internet
Al
1.0.
Gore's version. He made it.
It was
right?
Al started this business.
The arrogance of the left. You can't just claim that.
He's going to want royalty now.
It's going to want the royalty. That's awesome. All right, keep going.
So we sold those first 96 parts in 2001 when the business started. This in 26 will be 25 years old. I'm excited about that.
Do you still have some of kind of the very first
I
prototypical
have
Daniel Defense
I have
guns?
a few stuff like.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my wife. This happened. This was in the house I'm in now. So this happened a year or two ago, and so my wife's like, I hear something, and it's like, what do guys do when your wife hears something? She's like, let me grab my gun. I'm clearing the rooms, and I'm checking the whole house, and I'm looking out the windows, and I'm so I can come back and say, I checked everything, dear, and I got it under control.
Yes.
Right. And when I went to put the gun back in the closet, I'm like, oh, that's number 2. I probably shouldn't shoot somebody with that.
Yeah.
It's probably worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Number one
there's a lot of
number one got killed in quality, so it never got made. So it was the very first gun made and I'm like, let me go find a safe place to put this, and I'll use a later model. Where were we? 2001. We started this really as a hobby, and to get what I wanted, right? And then we started selling this stuff. I'm like, well, first of all, I was in the garage door business, which I enjoyed, but nobody said this is an awesome garage door, right? But when I was solving these few problems as we started out for customers, they were like, man, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right. So it gave me a little bit of drive there because it was fun.
That's great.
I was just buying ammo, right? Make some money, buy some ammo, go to the range and shoot it, right? So it was like
it resonates.
It was it
resonates.
You've heard this story.
I am that story. I am that story.
So that followed on. I think I started making some slings and some sling loops and some other attachments, and that when Ashley decided that he wanted to start his business, I said, you go take those things and you run with them, and I'll take the guns and I'll run with that. And we've been doing that ever since.
Sounds awesome, man.
He's he actually helped me for a while, and I couldn't afford to pay him, so I agreed to pay him for some things, like into the future for things,
right,
as we sold them. And I'm very grateful for his help getting this business started.
That's awesome. That's cool.
It's a perfect way that friends can do business together.
Awesome.
When
that's
you have
cool.
no money.
Yeah. So, Rod, 2024, the world is getting progressively crazier and less friendly to constitutionalists like you guys, those who are in the firearms business. I mean, any day, some illegal constitutional rule is passed, and all of a sudden your entire enterprise is under attack. And there's just some really powerful people that don't want companies like you to even exist. They'd like us infighting, so we're divided and easy to conquer. What do you see for the next few years, and how are you going to be navigating all the uncertainty and all the power grabbing that's happening out there?
Well, I think principally many friends, few enemies. And I think, we've talked about how the progressive left wants to divide those that are Second Amendment friendly and get us fighting amongst ourselves.
Right.
And that is working, unfortunately. And so, coming on even your show is a way for us to say, hey, there's a lot of opportunity to partner here and be really bold about what we believe, protect the Second Amendment,
right,
honor God, defend freedom. And so from a business perspective, massive amount of just SKU proliferation, leverage the brand where we're really good, and listen to customers. We read the comments on your show, on other shows, just to be able to say, hey, what do people really want? And it's often one of the benefits I think entrepreneurs have is that Henry Ford, the statement was often said that if you asked Henry Ford what people wanted during that time, they would have said a faster horse. And he obviously helped people solve the problem of being able to go from point A to point B faster, but he did it in a completely different way.
Right.
So entrepreneurs listen to the problem statement and they hear it from a different lens and they say, how can I innovate in a unique way? And everything, the risk that it abides, obviously, in the marketplace is just external risk that we've got to measure. But we're very, very bold on what we do, the brand that we hold, the quality standards that we have. That's our bar none.
Incredible tolerances of like cold hammer forging and stuff that y'all can do. And frankly, a lot of competitors, people just tinkering around in their garage, they can't really compete with that, right? So
we do tours frequently. And one of the things that we did this year, starting January 1st, we've been keeping all of our scrap, because I wanted the entire executive team, and I've gotten some pushback from the internal team of like, why are we keeping all this? Because normally we have these natural cycles to dispose of it, turn it into recycling, and so on. And I wanted our team to put their eyes on it and see that both how much we create in scrap, but then also when we give tours, we show people. And we were giving a tour to some folks, and we were talking them through how we have micrometers that can measure the thickness of a hair on a fly.
a hair on a fly?
A hair on a fly. You can just visualize that.
I cannot really visualize. That's amazing.
From a level of quality. But to measure it at that point, and then walking them around and showing them this is our scrap, and letting them put their hands on it, and they're like, oh my goodness, this is what's wrong with it.
Yeah, it looks like nothing because I've held those parts and immediately wanted to pocket them because they would look perfectly good. It looked perfectly good parts. I'm like, you're just wasting all this, was my thought.
Yeah.
So
that's the point, though, is that back to the statement of we know that this firearm could be used to defend. It could be used in a life and death situation. And if the quality is ever in question, we potentially put someone's life at risk. And so we take that responsibility very, very seriously. And so our quality standards are bar none. We see what other people do. We're very bullish on where we can take this company.
all right, so that's mission now. Has that always been mission?
For some time, but it's not kind of how it started. We didn't start with this mission. This mission evolved over time. So we clearly, I clearly know that God has blessed this business, and I think I know why. And it's because I was running a garage door business. I was living in a trailer. I was going to this little country church that needed a Sunday school wing. And I'm like, guys, we don't have any money, but we can do this ourselves. Right? So me and 29 other guys from the church show up on Friday and Saturday, taking a day off of work and on Saturday, and we just went and built it.
No kid.
We did everything.
Man, that's right? Men can do great things. Way to go. All right.
And then after that, it was like, well, we need a new, sanctuary. So we literally did the same thing with we literally put in the septic tanks.
Wow.
We dug the footers, we poured the concrete, we laid the blocks, we poured the slab, we did not hire a trade to do anything in this building. We were up on the top, roofing the building.
Wow.
Sheetrock, paint. It was an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah.
And then I was blessed to be able to do that kind of at the next church I went to, 2 or 3 buildings. At the next church I went to, shopping center, new building. And over time, it kind of shifted from guys that could do the work to I was making a little more money so we could actually help hire people to do these things. So in my mind, Daniel Defense along this journey kind of took off, and it was because I think God saw, well, here's a guy I can trust to be on mission.
Yeah.
Right?
You were
do what I put in front of
You're
him.
privately generous behind the scenes.
With your time as well as your money.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
And so
that's awesome. Thank you.
And so that's when we knew that it was I knew that it had to be a God mission.
Yeah.
Well, the defend freedom part of it happened when I was like, really understanding how much attack we were under as a country and our Second Amendment.
Because now you do a lot behind the scenes to that mission for Second Amendment stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to tell us about that.
Well, I'll come to that in a minute, but just evolving over time, we're like the Second Amendment. If our mission is for God, then the Second Amendment guarantees the preaching of the gospel, right?
Yeah, because they can't stop us now.
Right. So it's and it has, and our country's been the springboard for the gospel of Christ for 240 years.
Yeah.
And without the Second Amendment, why were there millions of people here in this country that in the what I call the first Civil War against the King of England, why were they here? They were here because the king said you had to worship at the Church of England.
Right.
And they're like, no, I want to worship how I want to worship. And that's why there were millions of people in the colonies that then had all these things done to them by the king that then they said, I'm not gonna sign this Constitution unless we have the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And we have, by the way, the right to bear arms to make sure that we have the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion.
And I think Second Amendment is really helpful in being able to preserve freedom so that we can share the gospel widely with ease. Though even without a Second Amendment, we could still tell the gospel. You just won't be able to do it long with your skin intact, That's fair, though, right? That's historically, I mean.
I mean, those things are happening in the world today.
Yeah, it is.
All over the world today. But what I'm saying is a lot of those Christians who are being persecuted today, somebody from America shared the gospel, right?
Possibly so, yeah.
So obviously not always, but possibly so. So, that's kind of how the mission developed, and it was a lot more lengthy mission statement, and Rod and I narrowed it down to honor God, defend freedom.
I think
and back to the
good.
defending freedom that I'm currently doing. At the same month I hired Rod, I started a nonprofit that I run called Bill of Rights Defenders, and it is a Second Amendment organization, and it is its purpose is also honor God, defend freedom. Its mission, its manner of doing that is changing the way people think about the Second Amendment and about firearms.
Yeah.
Changing the conversation, as Margaret Thatcher once said, we have to change the conversation, and then we can get the votes.
That's great.
That's our mission.
He doesn't give himself enough credit for all the work that's being done for the Second Amendment, and I don't think we want to share all of the behind the scenes. That's the whole purpose. It's very biblical that you go and serve the community, and you don't look to raise your head up and get praise for it. So, but I can brag on him and brag on all that's being done behind the scenes to protect the Second Amendment, and that's part of the thing that just frustrates us. You mentioned justice for the statements here. It's like frustrating. If people could really see what we do behind the scenes to support the community, despite the fact that we're actually in the business doing it.
It's maddening. Just snap judgments everywhere. Snap judgments.
People could see, but we're not looking to raise our hand and get praise for the things we're doing behind the scenes either. But what we are.
I think people, there is something to that. So let me defend the critic for a moment as I just excoriate them. Everyone is sick of being betrayed by leaders. Yeah. They're sick of being lied to and manipulated. And so much of what people see, so much of what I see as well, it's all a fraud, a lie, a manipulation. No one's courageous, and everyone's just after the almighty dollar. Yeah. And so part of that immediate, visceral, let me boycott you, write you off forever, is part of, it's just the visceral reaction to what is the norm around them. But the problem is if you allow all the bad to jade you so that you can't possibly coalition build at all, and you can't make any friendships or any alliances because one soundbite ends you. Yeah. No context, no more, just you are dead to me forever, burn. then you are going to be divided and you will fall. Yeah. And so we have to try, even with as much crap as happening around us, to be so jaded. It is easy to be divided, but
I would even go a step further. Sometimes you work inside of a situation that you don't know that you can win, but you're there to represent. You're there to shift the narrative.
Yeah.
In the direction of the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's good. Even though you don't agree with everything, right?
Well, I have some core values and principles. You guys share them as well, and I'm like, I'm not going to compromise on this. Mm-hmm. I'm like, let me go completely broke and out of business. I will never violate these principles. This is steadfast. So I can hold those principles, but at the same time, have the depth to be able to reach out and have a conversation and give some benefit of the doubt and build some friendships and build some relationships. Absolutely. While holding those principles.
100%.
And so I think people are ready to burn bridges immediately because they're holding those principles too, but they don't give any benefit of the doubt to anyone else. Yeah. They won't have a conversation. It's like we live in a time of just headlines where everyone reads and reacts to a headline without really doing any research down. We're just drowning in so much information. You can't process any of it. You can't really get one full news story about anything. Yeah. And so
there's way too much information.
It has us living reactive and ill-informed lives.
Yeah. What we're doing as a nonprofit is that's exactly what we're pushing against. There has to be messaging, opposite messaging.
When they decide...
Because they decide what the message is, and we're losing that messaging war.
Right.
And we have to be creative and think about how to be in that message war.
Yeah.
Because people will make bad decisions if they're only hearing one side.
Right. And what are the news stories that are really important that aren't being covered now? Everything looks like a big sleight of hand. Where it's here, see this news story. I'm like, no, I'm actually on the whole Epstein list thing. I want to talk about that still. The trial's this week, right? But meanwhile, it's this, fluff piece in front of us that we're all supposed to redirect. It's all redirect. Yeah. And so it's not just the bad spin and obvious leftist narrative that's happening in this news story. It's all the other news stories that aren't being covered. And
the media has gotten to a point where they believe that we as citizens are stupid.
Where we're trying very hard to prove them right in their defense.
Well, but we're not. I mean, I believe better, and I believe that the common man actually is far more intelligent than we give him credit for.
Guys, thanks so much for coming and hanging out and telling us background and telling us future. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate what you do, John.
Thanks, guys. Yay, Daniel Defense. 3 cheers. Woo! Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We got a lot more in this show that you are missing. Our Q and Ambush section, which is questions from you guys, stuff that you'll want to hear. That's part of this show. And also our Hot Topic section. You're not going to want to miss it. To get the rest of the show, you're going to have to support us. We really appreciate it if you would put skin in the game and help us with this movement. You guys get to choose the winners out there. Woke entertainment companies or guys like us, little guys, we need your support. So if you would go over to watchwpsn.com, that's watchwpsn.com, sign up. You'll get the rest of this show, The John Lovell Show, all of our other shows, and a whole bunch of training classes from me and from other trainers in the industry that we deem amazing and spectacular. It's a fantastic value. Sign up for a year. We'd appreciate it, and we will see you next time, guys.